to the very first episode of Real Talk where grace meets healing. I'm so excited you're here with me today. And truly and honestly, this has been a long time coming, but I can already feel the energy of this journey starting to unfold. And before we dive into today's episode, I know that's why you're all here. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to introduce myself, share why I started this podcast, and share what I hope as you as a listener gain from this podcast. But quick side note, if you see me scrolling on my iPad and if you see me looking down, I have my notes to make sure that I stay on task and on subject. Let the church say amen, okay? But if you don't know, my name is Trinity Sims and I am a PK. If you don't know what that means, I am a preacher's kid. And I am someone who have seen it all, right? I've seen the highs of people being healed, set free, delivered. I've witnessed ministry work within the community being done. And I've also experienced the lows of my own personal struggles and my own experience with church hurt. But above everything else, I am someone who has witnessed for herself the transformative power of God's grace and healing firsthand. And that's what this podcast is all about. So let's talk about why I started this podcast. I've been on a journey of healing and growth, probably really intentionally the last year or two. I've really intentionally been on this journey of trying to heal and trying to grow and become the best version of myself. And something that I've learned that the struggles I faced along the way has come from navigating the tensions of life difficulties and God's purpose for my life. We all face moments of rejection or feeling stuck or when life doesn't go as planned, how that makes us feel, right? We put this timeline out and we lay it out for God and we say, here's my plan. Here's my timeline. Here's how I want my life to go. And it's in those moments where God's grace has truly become the greatest source of my healing. I've learned that real conversations that ain't afraid to get real, raw, uncut, and sometimes even uncomfortable, those are the conversations that are essential for our healing. And that's exactly what I want this space to be, a place where we can have honest conversations about faith, about our healing journey, about relationship struggles, about church hurt, about post grad depression, everything in between, all while keeping God's love at the center of it. So, why this podcast? Oh, thanks for asking. Well, to be honest, I honestly did not expect this journey to take shape. Um, it all started with a viral video of a young lady who came before her church congregation and was asking for forgiveness and apologizing for becoming with child. She is unmarried, and for those that may not be familiar, sex before marriage is considered to be a sin in Christianity and in biblical terms, and also a child with coming from out of wedlock is frowned upon and is indirectly taught, that it's not something that is encouraged, it's not something that God sees and wants for our life. So I did not watch the video in its entirety, to be honest and frank with you. I did not. It is a very sensitive topic of discussion for me, and it's still triggering. It's something that I'm still actively healing from, which is part of why I started this podcast. And you may wonder or ask, why is it sensitive? Why is it a triggering topic for me? And it's because I could see myself in that young girl. And even though that this may be part of her and her family's denominational beliefs, again, side note, disclaimer, I truly respect each and everyone's individuality. I truly respect each and everyone's beliefs, their customs, and their culture. This is no way in shape, form, or fashion a podcast or a show where we will bash someone for what they believe in, or we will come against someone in a negative light that does not offer grace and healing. So I truly understand and respect that this is her beliefs and her culture and her customs. Then again, I also can tell you that there is shame and guilt along with it. Even though that is something that her and her family believes in, um, I can tell you firsthand, I did not have to stand before a crowd. When I was 18, I became pregnant with my son. And being a preacher's kid, I did not have to stand in front of a crowd like her, but I can tell you, being in the church and being a preacher's kid, I experienced even more shame, even more guilt than I already felt on myself, um, along with the weight of those unrealistic expectations, worrying about, fearing what the church may feel, or worrying about the church community, worrying about letting my family down, worrying about letting God down, right? And I already felt shame and guilt within myself. And to come to a place and be around people where I hoped to experience God's grace and healing. It was very disappointing, and it is something that I am still honestly actively healing from now that I am talking about it and talking through it, able to understand the root of my church hurt, the root of my personal experiences with it, and how to navigate moving forward. So that's why I started this podcast. But here's the thing, in the midst of my mistakes, y'all, God's grace was right there. It was right there. And I may not have known it at 18. I may not have known it at 19 when I had my son. But now I'm starting to understand and realize that His grace is sufficient, that His grace was always there. And God is the one that I'm aiming to please, not man. So at the end of the day, um, this journey is truly about healing my younger self, sharing my testimony, sharing my experience with others, hoping that other young women or other maybe preachers' kids or other churchgoers or just anyone in general that maybe has had a similar experience or experienced church hurt or has having a hard time navigating life's difficulties. I hope and pray that this podcast is a space where grace meets healing and where we can truly deep dive into these things and we can honestly seek God's grace and mercy 100%. Um, and that's the message I want to share with you. I want to share with you that the reason that I'm here is to encourage you, is to remind you, and to even challenge you that no matter what you go through, no matter what it is, no matter what you've experienced in your past, no matter the shame, no matter the guilt, no matter the feeling that I am unworthy, I am undeserving of God's love and God's grace, no matter those feelings, I am here to remind you, encourage you, and challenge you that you are not beyond God's grace and healing. Whether it's church hurt, whether it's relationship struggles, whether it's your own personal battles within yourself, again, you are not beyond God's grace and healing. So each episode, we will be deep diving into topics like church hurt, navigating relationships, dealing with post grad depression, and finding healing through God's love, y'all. That's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate point of this podcast, is so that we all, in whatever walk, in whatever journey that we're on, we all can find healing and God's grace. So, we'll talk about what it means to walk in purpose, even when it's scary, and how grace can truly transform even the most broken parts of our lives. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this. No matter where you're at right now, God's grace is enough for you. Whether you struggles you faced, whatever mistakes you made, God has already forgiven you. And He's already working to restore what was broken. His healing is available for you today. And as we continue this journey together, I encourage you to take a step forward in faith. Even when it's hard, even when it's scary, trust that God's purpose for you is greater than any setback. He is with you and He is for you. Thank you so much for listening to the very first episode of Real Talk, where grace meets healing. I'm so glad that you're here, and I cannot wait for you to hear the next episode. We will be deep diving into our relationship talk series, so please stay tuned. Subscribe, tap that notification bell so you can receive all notifications when our weekly episodes post. Please like, comment, share it with your family, your friends, your partner. Share it with everyone and let them know that this is a space, a safe space, where we can truly grow, truly have honest conversations, and truly seek God's grace and healing. Again, I'm Trinity Sims. I'm your host for the Real Talk, where grace meets healing podcast, and I encourage you to keep walking in grace.